I was in the living room watching TV when my daughter-in-law walked in, grabbed the remote, and shut it off like she was flicking a switch on my existence. "Yeah, go up to your room," she said, voice flat and certain. "This is my living room now." For a second, I actually looked to my son, Evan, waiting for him to laugh, or correct her, or do anything that sounded like, "Mom, stop. That's Dad." He didn't. He just turned away and walked down the hall like the floor mattered more than my face. So I stood up, slow and steady. I picked up my keys from the side table, the same ring I've carried for 25 years in this house, and I walked out without saying a single word. I didn't slam the door. I didn't beg. I didn't argue. I just left. My name is Frank Mallory. I'm 67 years old, a widower, and I've spent my whole life believing that if you give your family a roof, you'll always have a place at the table. The next morning, a man in a crisp suit rang my doorbell. "Tell me, have you ever been pushed out of your own home by the people you were trying to help?" And before I go deeper, drop a comment. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there right now? The family room used to be the safest place in my whole life. That's not a dramatic statement. It's just true. After my wife, Marlene, passed 15 years ago, that room became my routine, my anchor, the brown leather recliner angled toward the TV, the little end table with a ring stain from 100 cups of coffee, the throw blanket she'd bought because she said, "Men never admit they're cold." I'd sit there in the early evenings with the local news murmuring, then a football game if it was Sunday, and I'd let my bones settle into the quiet like they belonged somewhere. The house itself isn't fancy. It's a modest 2-story in a calm neighborhood outside Pittsburgh. Marlene and I bought it when Evan was still in grade school, when the backyard felt huge and the mortgage felt terrifying. I worked city electrical, hard hat, union card, steady pay. She ran the household like a small, efficient country. When she got sick, everything shrank down to doctor appointments and hospital hallways. But we never lost the house. After she was gone, keeping it wasn't just finances, it was memory. It was proof we had built something that didn't disappear the moment life got cruel. So when Evan called me 2 years ago and said, "Dad, we might need a little help," my first instinct wasn't to judge. It was to open the door. He'd been laid off from a tech company, one of those restructuring situations where everyone pretends it's nobody's fault while you pack your desk in a cardboard box. Tessa was pregnant at the time, tired and anxious, and they were staring down rent prices that made me wince even before inflation started turning everything into a joke. "Just for a few months," Evan promised, "until I land something, until we get on our feet." A few months sounded reasonable, family sounded like family, and if I'm honest, the house had been too quiet for too long. The first week they moved in, I thought I'd made the right call. Tessa cooked once. Nothing fancy, but she tried. Evan helped carry boxes. There was laughter in the kitchen again. The hallway lights stayed on later. I could hear footsteps upstairs, and, strange as it sounds, the noise felt like proof the house still had blood in it. Then the house started changing in little ways that didn't ask permission. It began with the Wi-Fi. One morning I woke up, poured my coffee, went to check the weather on my tablet, and the network name I'd used for years was gone. Just gone. In its place was something sleek and smug. Tessa Home. I stood there blinking at the screen like it had insulted me. "Tessa," I called. She came down in workout leggings and a hoodie, phone in hand, already scrolling. "Yeah?" "The Wi-Fi. Did it change?" "Oh," she said, like I'd asked where the spoons were. "I upgraded the router. The old one was slow. I set a stronger password." "What's the password?" She smiled without looking up. "I'll connect your devices later. I'm in the middle of something." Later turned into 3 days. I had to ask Evan, and even then he looked uncomfortable, like I was requesting access to a private club instead of my own internet. That was the first time I felt a small pinch of something that wasn't quite anger, more like displacement, like the room had shifted an inch while I wasn't looking. Then came the front porch. A little black doorbell camera appeared one afternoon. Neat, shiny, a tiny eye pointed straight at the driveway. I didn't hate the idea. I'm not against safety, but I would have appreciated being told. "Tessa installed it," Evan said when I asked. He didn't meet my eyes. Just peace of mind. "Whose peace?" I asked. He shrugged. "You know how she gets." That became the sentence that explained everything. "You know how she gets." Tessa started talking like the house was a project she'd been assigned. She moved a framed photo of Marlene and me off the mantel and replaced it with a neutral canvas print. Gray lines, meaningless to anyone, but modern. She bought throw pillows with stiff corners that didn't belong on the couch I'd fallen asleep on 1,000 times. She complained about my coffee smelling burnt and started making hers in a little frothing machine that sounded like an angry insect. And then there was the living room itself. I'd sit in my recliner watching the local news, and Tessa would walk through like I wasn't there. She'd take phone calls on speaker, loud and clipped, talking about brand partnerships and content strategy, as if she was running a company out of my walls. She'd step in front of the TV to adjust the thermostat. She'd tell Evan, "We need better lighting in here," and he'd nod like the room was theirs to redesign. Evan, for his part, tried to be invisible. He had a remote job eventually, something with customer success and endless Zoom calls. He set up his laptop at the dining table, then moved to the upstairs guest room, then finally turned the little back office into his workspace. He lived with noise-canceling headphones on, shoulders tense, always mid-message, always distracted. When Tessa snapped, he softened. When she demanded, he negotiated. When she pushed, he yielded. Not because he didn't love me, because he was afraid of the blast radius. I started noticing other things too, small signs that didn't fit. An envelope from a bank I didn't recognize, sitting on the counter with my name on it. Thick paper, official, the kind that makes your stomach tighten even before you open it. I reached for it. Tessa's hand landed on top of mine before my fingers even touched the seal. "I'll handle the mail," she said lightly, like she was doing me a favor. "It's addressed to me." She kept smiling. "I'm organizing everything. It's a lot easier this way." There was a moment, just a moment, where I could have pulled that envelope back and said, "No, hand it over." I could have made it a line in the sand. Instead, I looked past her and saw Evan at the edge of the kitchen, watching us like a kid listening for thunder. He gave me a tiny shake of his head. Not no, not yes. Just, please don't. So I let it go. And that's the thing about giving up one small thing. It makes the next small thing easier to take. By the time the TV got turned off that night, it didn't feel like a single insult out of nowhere. It felt like the final click of a lock that had been quietly closing for months. Sitting there in my recliner, hearing Tessa's footsteps approach, I realized something I'd been avoiding because it hurt too much to say out loud. It was still my name on the deed. It was still my mortgage, my taxes, my history in those walls. But in their heads, it wasn't my house anymore. That night, the family room looked almost the way it always had, like it was trying to pretend nothing was changing. The same lamp in the corner threw a warm circle over my recliner. The same end table held my mug of coffee already cooling. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet in that early evening way. Porch lights turning on one by one, someone's dog barking once and then stopping, as if even the noise had manners. On TV, the local news anchor was talking about a 3-car pileup on Route 28. I wasn't even really listening. I was doing what I'd done for years, letting the sound fill the space where Marlene used to be, letting the day fall off my shoulders. Evan was upstairs. I could hear his voice through the vent sometimes, low, polite, that forced, calm customer success tone. Tessa was in the kitchen clattering something that didn't need clattering. Her footsteps had a particular rhythm when she was irritated, fast, sharp, like the floor owed her an apology. Then the room shifted, not in any visible way, just the air. I heard her coming before I saw her, the soft thud of socks on hardwood, the faint jingle of bracelets, the little sigh she did when she was about to make something someone else's fault. She stepped into the family room, holding her phone like a weapon. Her eyes flicked from the TV to me, and her mouth tightened in that familiar expression, like she'd walked into a mess she hadn't made, and yet somehow I was responsible for it. Without saying hello, she held out her hand. "Remote," she said. I blinked at her. "Excuse me." She didn't repeat it. She just stared, waiting, like the words had already been agreed upon in a meeting I hadn't been invited to. "It's the news," I said. "I'm watching." Tessa leaned over the arm of my recliner and picked the remote up off the end table herself. Her fingers wrapped around it like it belonged to her. She didn't even look guilty. She looked efficient. Then she pressed the power button. The screen went black. That click, tiny, plastic, ordinary, hit the room like a slap, like a judge's gavel, like something being decided without my consent. "What are you doing?" I asked, and I hated how small my voice sounded. Tessa straightened, still holding the remote. She lifted her chin a fraction, the way she did when she was speaking to service people or to Evan when he forgot to take out the trash. "Go up to your room," she said. "This is my living room now." For a second, my brain didn't translate it. Not because I didn't hear her, because a part of me refused to believe a grown woman could stand in a man's home and say something like that with a straight face. "My room?" I repeated. "Tessa, this is not a discussion," she cut in, voice flat. "Evan has a game call in 20 minutes. He needs quiet. I'm not having you blasting the TV like it's your personal lounge." I stared at her hand on the remote. Then I looked past her into the hallway, toward the stairs. "Evan," I called, not loud, just enough for him to hear if he was anywhere nearby. "Evan, can you come here a second?" Footsteps on the stairs, slow, reluctant, like a kid walking toward a principal's office. He appeared at the edge of the family room in socks and sweatpants, laptop charger dangling from one hand. His eyes flicked to Tessa first, then to me. He knew. He'd known before he walked down. "What's going on?" he asked, but his tone wasn't curious. It was cautious, defensive, like he was already planning how to make this end quickly. Tessa didn't even turn toward him. She kept her eyes on me. "Tell your dad to go upstairs. You have a call." My throat tightened. I felt heat rise behind my eyes. Not tears, not yet, but that sharp sting of humiliation that comes when someone tries to rearrange your rank in your own home. I looked straight at my son, and I waited. I didn't need him to fight. I didn't need him to scream. I didn't need him to choose violence or drama. I needed one sentence, one simple line that would anchor reality back where it belonged. "That's my dad." Or, "Tessa, no." Or even, "Dad, give me 10 minutes and we'll talk. Just don't talk to him like that." Anything that said, "You still matter here." Evan's mouth opened slightly. He swallowed. His eyes dropped to the carpet, as if the pattern suddenly had answers he couldn't find in my face. "Dad," he started. Then he stopped. He took one step back, like he could physically remove himself from responsibility. I'll take the call upstairs," he muttered, and before I could speak, he turned and walked away down the hallway, shoulders tight, as if leaving fast enough could erase what had just happened. He didn't defend me. He didn't correct her. He didn't even look back. For a beat, the room went silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Tessa exhaled through her nose like she'd won a point. "You heard him," she said. "Upstairs." Something in me went very still. Not anger, not rage. Something colder, clearer. The kind of feeling you get when you realize you've been negotiating with people who never intended to compromise. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't say a single word. I leaned forward and picked up my keys from the end table. The metal was cool against my palm, my keyring heavy with history. House key, car key, the little brass tag from Marlene's old gym, the spare I'd kept for Evan back when he was 16 and always losing things. I stood up slowly. My knees popped, my back protested. I didn't rush, I didn't perform. I just moved like a man finishing a task. Tessa watched me with a small, smug smile, like she expected me to shuffle upstairs and disappear. Instead, I walked past her, right past her and the remote and her little kingdom. I went to the front door. I opened it. The air outside was crisp, clean, indifferent, in the best way. I stepped onto the porch and pulled the door shut behind me, not slammed. Not soft either, firm, final, like a period at the end of a sentence. I didn't take a suitcase. I didn't take a jacket. I didn't take anything except what was already mine. My keys, my wallet, my dignity, whatever was left of it. I got into my truck and sat there for a full minute without turning the engine on. Both hands rested on the steering wheel at 10 and 2. The way I'd taught Evan when he was learning to drive. The dashboard glowed faintly. The house sat behind me in the rearview mirror. Lights on, warm, occupied by people who had forgotten whose name made that warmth possible. I stared straight ahead and took one slow breath, then another. And with each breath, something shifted, not in the house but in me, like my hands were remembering what control felt like. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, half expecting a text from Evan, some weak apology, some, "Dad, please come back." Instead, I saw a notification I didn't recognize at first. Location shared with family group. I frowned and tapped it. My stomach tightened as the screen loaded. A map, a little blue dot, my dot, and right above it, a switch that was on. Worse than that, There was a setting below it. Notifications off. Someone had turned them off, so I wouldn't know. So, I could be watched quietly, the way you watch a dog you don't trust to stay in the yard. For a moment, the humiliation came back hot and fast. Then it cooled into something sharper. I wasn't just being disrespected. I was being managed. And I finally understood. The remote control in that living room was never the real power. It was the tracking, the passwords, the mail. The quiet little switches flipped without my knowledge. I looked at the dark road ahead, and I made a decision without saying it out loud. If they wanted to treat me like I didn't exist in my own home, then they were about to learn what it felt like when I stopped making their life comfortable inside it. I drove until the streets thinned out and the houses stopped looking like mine. I didn't want a friend's couch. I didn't want pity. I wanted distance. Just enough space to think without hearing my own front door in my head. A 24-hour diner sat off the highway with a neon sign that buzzed like it was tired of staying awake. I parked under a light, killed the engine, and sat there for a beat, hands still on the wheel. Then I went inside, ordered black coffee, and chose a booth in the back where I could see the door. The waitress dropped the mug and asked, "You okay, hun?" "I'm fine," I said, and meant it in the only way that mattered. I was still upright. I pulled out my phone. The little blue dot on that map was still there, still glowing, like a leash. I didn't touch it yet. First, I made the call I'd been avoiding for months. The call Marlene would have made the day the Wi-Fi changed. Rita Sandoval picked up on the second ring. "Frank?" Her voice was sharp and awake, like she'd been waiting for trouble to show up. "It's me," I said. "They're in my house, no lease. She told me my living room is hers." A pause, not surprise. Calculation. "Where are you right now?" "At a diner off 79. "Good, stay put. 3 questions," she said, clipped. "Any joint accounts? Any access to your SSN? Any power of attorney?" I opened my wallet on the table like I was laying out evidence. Medicare card, driver's license, my old union card, local 5, worn at the edges. Behind it, the small brass key I kept taped into a corner slot, the one that opened the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet in my bedroom closet, the cabinet Marlene called the boring vault. "No joint accounts," I said, but she's been handling the mail, and my phone's sharing my location with a family group. Notifications were turned off. Rita exhaled once. "That's not normal, that's control." "And I saw a bank envelope yesterday. Didn't recognize the logo." She stopped me from opening it. "Okay," Rita said. "Do you still have the trust?" The question landed clean. Marlene had insisted on it after her diagnosis, back when I thought paperwork couldn't fight disease. She'd sat at our kitchen table and said, "Frank, promise me you won't let anyone talk you out of your own name." A revocable living trust, boring on the surface, powerful in a crisis. I was the settler. The house was titled into it, and if anyone tried to claim I was confused, there was a backup trustee named right there in ink. "Rita Sandoval." "Yes," I said, "it's in my cabinet. That's what this key is for." "Good," she replied. "Then we don't argue, we document." I took a sip of coffee. It tasted like scorched truth. "Here's what we're doing," Rita continued, voice steady. 3 layers, legal, financial control systems. You follow the steps and you say nothing unnecessary. Silence is protection." "Go ahead," I said. "Legal first," she said. "We terminate their occupancy. No lease means they're there by your permission. Permission ends now. I'll draft a notice to terminate and a notice to quit. If there are threats, yelling, intimidation, we prepare a restraining order. You do not go back alone tonight. Understood." "Understood." "Second layer, financial," Rita said. "Tomorrow morning, you're going to freeze your credit, Experian and TransUnion at minimum. Lock it. Then we call your banks and investment accounts. Change alerts to your number only. Remove any authorized users. If anyone opened credit in your name, we start a fraud file. I'm also going to request a credit report immediately." My jaw tightened. "So that envelope could be nothing," Rita said. "Or it could be everything. We're not guessing." "Okay." "Third layer, control systems," she said. "You reclaim your house's digital spine. Smart lock admin, router ownership, doorbell camera access, any family safety apps. We disable tracking. We change passwords. If the router is in her name, we replace it. If the smart lock account was switched, we take it back, or we swap the hardware." I stared at the table. The plan was simple. That was the point. A clean list. No emotions required. "And Frank," Rita added, "you stop communicating directly. No calls, no texts, no explanations. Everything goes through me in writing." I nodded once, even though she couldn't see it. What about Evan? That's your son, she said. We'll deal with him after we stop the bleeding. I glanced at my phone again, at the map and that switch. My thumb hovered. Turn off your location sharing now, Rita ordered, as if she'd read my hand, and turn notifications back on. If she tries to re-enable it, we document the time. I flipped the switch. The blue dot stopped broadcasting. For the first time since I walked out, my chest loosened. Rita's tone softened a fraction. You did the right thing leaving. Men like you try to fix disrespect with patience. Patience doesn't fix theft. I swallowed. What happens tomorrow? I'm sending someone in the morning, she said. A process server, I asked. Rita's voice went cold. Worse for her, an investigator. I didn't go back to the house that morning. I stayed at a roadside motel, the kind with thin curtains and burnt coffee. I didn't need comfort. I needed distance and a clear view. I'd already shut off the location sharing and changed my passcode. The silence in the room felt like a reset button. I didn't pace. I didn't pray. I just waited, coffee cooling on the nightstand, watching my front door like a man watching a fuse burn, and my hands finally stopped shaking. Tessa's doorbell camera still streamed to my phone. She'd set it up for security, but she'd left my old email on the shared list. She thought I wouldn't notice. She thought wrong. At 8:12 a.m., a man stepped into frame. Charcoal suit, crisp white shirt, tie straight, leather briefcase in one hand. He checked the number, then pressed the doorbell once. Calm. Final. Miles Carter. Tessa opened the door fast, already smiling like this was a delivery. Hi, can I help you? Miles didn't smile. He stayed on the porch, polite in a way that didn't bend. Good morning, I'm Miles Carter, he said. I'm here regarding an elder financial abuse report and an occupancy termination. Tessa's smile stalled, stuck halfway. Behind her, Evan appeared in the hallway, hair a mess, phone in his hand. The moment he saw the suit, his face drained. Miles lifted a folder. I need to confirm identity. Are you Tessa Mallory? Yes, she said, too quick. And Evan Mallory resides here. Evan nodded once. Miles glanced at the top page. This property is owned by Frank Mallory through a revocable trust. You are occupants without a lease. As of today, permission to occupy is terminated. You are being served notice to vacate. Tessa's voice snapped into a different register. Frank isn't here. He gets confused. He wanders. He can't manage money. Miles didn't react. If that's your position, you won't mind a cognitive screening request and a bank audit trail. Evan's eyes widened. He looked at Tessa like he'd never seen her before. Tessa tried to laugh. This is ridiculous. We're family. Miles held the papers out. You've been served. All communication goes through counsel in writing. Do not contact Mr. Mallory directly about these notices. She stared at the pages as if touching them would stain her. What are you accusing me of? Nothing today, Miles said. Today I'm delivering deadlines. Evan stepped forward half a pace. Sir, can we just talk to my dad? You can speak through his attorney, Miles replied. That protects everyone. Tessa turned sharp. He doesn't have an attorney. He's stubborn. He doesn't know what he's doing. Miles looked down, then back up. He does, and there's more. Tessa's eyes narrowed. More what? Miles' tone stayed even. We've seen preliminary indicators of credit activity using Mr. Mallory's social security number. There was a recent credit inquiry, and an authorized user was added to one of his accounts within the last 60 days. Evan flinched, hard, like a punch landed in his gut. Tessa's face went too still. I don't know what you're talking about. That's why we document, Miles said. If it's legitimate, the records will show it. If it isn't, the records will show that too. On my screen, Tessa's hand tightened on the door frame. Her knuckles went white. Miles took a small step back. Vacate by the stated deadline. Any retaliation, harassment, or attempts to restrict Mr. Mallory's access to his property will be noted. Evan finally spoke, voice low and cracking. Tess, what did you do? Tessa whipped toward him. Nothing. Don't start. Miles didn't stay for their fight. He turned, walked down my steps, and left the camera frame without hurrying. I set my phone on the motel bed and sat very still. The law had entered my living room without shouting. And the truth was colder than the insult. Tessa hadn't just tried to move me upstairs. She'd reached for my name, my credit, my life. Things you don't get to borrow from an old man and call it family. The conference room at Rita Sandoval's office was built to kill drama. A long table, a ticking clock, and paper that didn't care who shouted. In front of me sat my ID and the trust binder. Rita was on my right, suit sharp, pen straight. Miles Carter stood near the wall with a thin folder. At 10 thrice, Tessa walked in like she owned the air. Evan followed behind her, pale and tense. Tessa stayed standing. "My father-in-law is unstable," she said. "He wanders. He's paranoid. He's abusive. I'm requesting guardianship. He can't handle money." Rita pointed to a chair. "Sit down, Ms. Mallory." Tessa sat, phone still in her hand. Evan took the seat beside her, eyes on the table. I kept my voice flat. "I left because you told me to go to my room in my own house." "He twists things," Tessa snapped. Rita slid the first document across. "Deed and trust. The home is owned by Frank Mallory's revocable trust. Frank is the settlor and current trustee. Guardianship is not a shortcut to property." Tessa waved a hand. "He can be tricked into signing anything." "Then this matters," Rita said, setting down page 2. "Smart lock log. The administrator account was changed from Frank's email to yours. Two-factor went to your phone." Evan's head lifted. "Why would you change that?" "To help," Tessa said fast. "He forgets passwords." Miles opened his folder. Location sharing. Frank's phone was enrolled in a family group. Notifications were disabled. That's concealment. "It's safety," she shot back. "It's control," Rita said. "Now the money." She placed statements with tabs. "You were added as an authorized user on Frank's card. There were charges for electronics, creator coaching, and ad spend. There were transfers from his checking into your account." Tessa laughed once. "So I bought household things." Rita didn't blink. There was also a credit inquiry using Frank's social security number, a personal line of credit application. We are treating it as potential fraud. Evan turned toward Tessa. "You told me that was for the nursery." "Don't," Tessa hissed. Rita's tone stayed level. "Ms. Mallory, you claim Frank is incompetent, yet you tried to secure a power of attorney." "Yes," Tessa said, "because someone has to manage him." Evan's hands tightened. "Dad, she had me sign a POA draft." The room went still. Rita turned to him. "Explain." "She said it was so she could talk to the bank for you," Evan said. "She said I was just a witness. The witness line was already filled in. There wasn't a notary. She printed a stamp." Tessa shot up. "Evan, stop." "I'm not confused," he said. "I was scared of you." Rita nodded once. "A forged or improperly witnessed POA is a crime. It also collapses your guardianship request." Tessa tried to pivot. "This is a family matter." Miles spoke softly. "Your former employer has an open inquiry tied to missing reimbursement funds. Rapid new credit activity fits cover behavior." Evan stared at her. "What did you do?" Tessa's eyes flicked away. "That's none of your business." "It became my business when you used my dad," Evan said. I looked at Tessa and said it clean. "You didn't take my living room. You tried to take my name." I didn't raise my voice. The paper did the yelling, louder than me. For the first time, she had no quick line, just calculation. Rita slid the final page forward. Terms. 30 days to vacate. Any threats? And we shortened the timeline with a protective order. Internet, cable, and the phone plan in Frank's name stay off. All contact goes through my office in writing. If you keep spreading incapacity claims without medical basis, we pursue defamation and report the pattern to Adult Protective Services. Tessa's mouth opened, then closed. Evan didn't apologize. He didn't perform. He signed the withdrawal, renouncing any claim and acknowledging the termination notice. Then he pulled a small device from his pocket and set it on the table. A tracking tag. "I'm done," he said quietly. "I won't be part of this." Rita gathered the papers. Meeting concluded. I stood, and the pop in my knees sounded like a lock finally turning. On move-out day, I wasn't in the driveway waiting for a scene. I got a haircut, clean edges, no apologies, then ate eggs and toast at the same diner and let the morning be ordinary. After that, I met a locksmith and handed him one key. "New cores on every exterior door," I said. "Today." When he called, "Done," I drove home and parked like I belonged there because I did. The front door opened with a quiet, unfamiliar click. Inside, the air felt lighter. The family room was empty. No piles, no staged pillows, just my recliner, my end table, and a clean stretch of carpet where their furniture had been. I picked up the remote, turned on the TV, and raised the volume by one notch. Exactly one. Not loud, just mine. An hour later, Evan came by. He stayed on the porch, hands visible, voice steady. "Dad, can I come by as a guest?" I held his gaze. "Guests are welcome, tenants are not." He nodded once. 2 Wednesdays later, I set up a folding table at the local library with printed checklists, wills, passwords, credit freezes, authorized users, do not sign under pressure. Seniors showed up with quiet questions and shaky hands. I didn't preach. I gave them steps. That night, I walked room to room, checked the locks twice, turned off the lights, and chose silence like a right I'd earned. For first time in years, I didn't feel like a guest. A home isn't a place you beg to exist in. It's the place your keys still recognize.